Part 3. I just want to be a quiet Tianlong person. Author, Tianlong. Chapter 21. Next, amid Luffy's desperate cries, Chulan took some good footage. There's even a photo of Big Bear and Rayleigh whispering. He is also bold. As a Shishibukai, he kissed the vice-captain of the Roger Pirates in front of the admiral, and he simply didn't look down on the Navy. If you don't save any face for the Navy, who will you deal with if you don't deal with it? Finally, after a few slaps, everyone flew to the tourist resort chosen by Big Bear for them. Luffy was left lying on the ground crying loudly. I can't even save a friend. At this time, Kizaru finally realized that something was wrong. Are you planning to shoot him away and end it? Are you ready to explain? This is a serious problem. Big Bear ignored him at all, stood in front of Luffy, and said softly, "We won't meet again. Farewell." The Big Bear slowly stretched out his left hand and patted the Straw Hat Kid, Luffy. But at this moment, something changed suddenly. Just when the bear's paw was about to hit the Straw Hat Kid, a brilliant sword light suddenly appeared between the two of them. Explode. The Big Bear's palm stopped just a hair away from the blade, without moving any further. Sharp and terrifying. Big Bear praised, his voice as gentle as a cute girl. "Thank you for the compliment." Chulan put the sword into its sheath. "Who are you and what do you want to do?" Dakshin asked seriously. "Why does everyone have to ask me this question when we meet, and I am so unknown as a celestial dragon?" Chulan ignored him, turned to Kizaru and said, "Kizaru, go and have a drink with Lei Kataka, I have something to discuss with him. I still prefer drinking wine to drinking tea." Rayleigh laughed loudly. "Kizaru, want a drink?" Although Rayleigh didn't know who the young man who suddenly appeared was, his attitude didn't seem to mean any harm. You know, even the celestial dragons didn't dare to order the general so directly. He could order Kizaru unceremoniously. The identity is definitely not simple. "What is the identity of this young man?" asked Kizaru later. Kizaru was silent, took a deep look at Chulan, nodded and said, "Yes. Master Chulan's hung." "Oh, no need to ask, it turned out to be a celestial dragon." Rayleigh laughed loudly and walked back first. "Kizaru, whatever wine you like to drink, I'll treat you to it." "I drink tea." "Ah, you are from the auction house?" Luffy collapsed on the ground, looked at Chulan, and shouted in surprise, "Hurry, save my companion." Chulan glanced back at him. "Who are you? Do I know you well? Let me save your companion?" If you don't say that your companion is okay, your self-righteous attitude is wrong in the first place. At first glance, it is a failure of quality education. Chulan directly raised her leg and gave him a kick. After he was kicked dozens of meters away, he hit a tree trunk and passed out. The conversation that follows is not suitable for someone to chatter next to him. With his big mouth, if he doesn't silence it, he will really keep shouting. Jean Momomaru stood aside and saw Straw Hat Luffy being kicked away. He was about to instruct PX-1 to step forward to retrieve him, but under a warning look from his master, he stayed where he was and did not act rashly. "Chulan's hung, sir." Bartholomew Big Bear took 2 steps back and looked at the man in front of him. The reason why he stepped back was not because Chulan was too short. With a height of 1.85 meters, he is considered a human being whether on Earth or here. He's a medium-tall man. But it depends on who he compares with. Compared with the 6.89-meter tall Big Bear, it's a true portrayal of me jumping up and hitting your knees. And with this big belly, nightlife is definitely inconvenient. What do you want to do? Former Revolutionary Army Cotter, King of Salbii Kingdom, Tyrant, Bartholomew Bear. Chulan held out 3 fingers and said with a smile, "I want you to promise me 3 things. After the mechanical transformation, Big Bear's sanity, which had almost been lost, returned instantly, and he said with a serious expression, "I don't quite understand what you're talking about." "It doesn't matter if you don't understand, it's not important. The important thing is that you have agreed to my request, right?" Chu Lan said with a smile, "If you can do it, I can send you back to the Revolutionary Army." The big bear's eyes lit up for a moment, then dimmed and returned to an indifferent expression. Speaking. "I know what you did to the Straw Hats, and I know where you plan to send Luffy." Chu Lan said, "My first request is to give him another place. You can send him anywhere except Nine Snakes Island." Big Bear shook his head and refused, "That's the most suitable place for him." "You can say no," Chu Lan said with a smile. "But he can't go anywhere." The threat in the words is self-evident. De Xiong was silent for a moment, and finally nodded. Judging from the strength Chu Lan showed just now, if he really wanted to stop him, he would definitely not be able to send the Straw Hat Boy away smoothly. What's more, there are also General Kizaru and a large number of navy around. I just want to be a quiet Tianlong person. Author, Dai Tianlong. Chapter 22. Very good. Chu Lan was very pleased and put away a finger. The second thing is, 3 days later, send me to Nine Snake Island. Big Bear. Dakshan's extremely rational mind didn't even figure out what Chu Lan was trying to do. "You didn't ask me to send people to Nine Snake Island just now, why are you asking me to send you there again? Why do you want to go to Nine Snake Island?" Big Bear said, "You have mastered domineering, Nine Snakes Island cannot make you stronger. Why are you asking so many questions? Labor and management are not there to become stronger." Chu Lan said impatiently, "Oh, isn't it okay? Good." Big Bear asked, "What is the third thing?" "The third thing is very simple, I want you to kill someone." "Who to kill? Is he guilty?" Big Bear asked. "Although he was called a tyrant back then, he is now a man holding a Bible and cannot kill innocent humans. Don't worry, he is a great pirate who has done a lot of evil." Chu Lan suppressed a smile and said, "No problem. Who is the person to be killed?" "Annie, come on down, it's your turn," Chu Lan shouted loudly, and Big Bear looked up. Hearing the sound, Chiao Alaboni shrank back, not wanting to see others as a Lolita. She was about to transform when she heard Chu Lan say again, "Keep the look of a Lolita, you can't turn back into a royal sister." Chiao Alaboni glared at Chu Lan, gritted her teeth, and jumped down from the tree in a Lolita posture. Looking at the big bear in front of her, Chiao Alaboni had a complicated expression. The big bear looked down at the girl in front of him, his face expressionless. The expression said, "I won't do anything to the child. It's just fruit ability." Chu Lan waved her hand and said, "I don't know how old I am actually, but I am definitely an adult." Chiao Alaboni was unwilling on the spot and said angrily, "I don't know how old I am, but I will always be 18, okay? Old woman, you are eating shit." Chu Lan continued to introduce her, Chiao Alaboni, with a bounty of 140 million baileys, committed all kinds of crimes along the way, including burning, killing and looting. She is the biggest villain in the South China Sea. How about it, can you do it? Chu Lan stopped talking and looked at the two people with a half smile. The main reason why he specially captured Chiao Alaboni was because he wanted to find out her true identity and age. Chiao Alaboni's identity is very mysterious. Because of her fruit ability, she can change her appearance at will. No one knows whether she had any other identities before becoming a pirate. Chu Lan only knows that he and Dakshan have some unexplainable connections. Relationship. Let her meet De Xiong here mainly because Chu Lan wants to completely reveal the relationship between the two people. Is she De Xiong's mother or De Xiong's baby? The probability of De Xiong's baby can basically be ignored. Compared with ordinary people, do human women make babies? Don't make it difficult for Big Bear's little brother. The width of his belly is definitely greater than the length of his brother. As for the remaining possibility, Chu Lan looked at Xiao Alaboni with a strange expression. Thank you for your hard work. So, what kind of creature is his dad? Want to know? Chu Lan had no interest in this woman herself. This violent temper was not her thing, not to mention that no one knew how old she was. Is it 23 or 230? There was a brief silence between the three of them. Not far away, Rayleigh and Kizaru sat facing each other, holding teacups in their hands, drinking tea and eating melon in silence. Half an hour passed. You two are so patient. Are you going to perform a pantomime for me now? Chu Lan said impatiently. Big Bear, do it. Big Bear looked at him, hesitated for a moment, and finally slowly raised his paw. Xiao Alaboni looked at the big bear in front of her without any resistance. There was no trace of sadness, fear, or resentment in her eyes. Just happy. Only tears. Bartholomew Bear's attack suddenly came, and a huge shadow enveloped Zhou Aliponi, but when it approached her body, the attack instantly changed direction. He slapped Chu Lan beside him with a palm. Kizaru's complexion changed drastically, and his figure disappeared instantly, but even at his speed, it was difficult to cross the distance of several hundred meters in just a short moment. Save Chu Lan from the big bear. Just when Kizaru felt that something was wrong, a sneer suddenly sounded. Ha, I knew it. Chu Lan had long realized that there might be such a development. The moment the big bear changed the direction of attack, Goiche, who had been accumulating for half an hour, suddenly unsheathed, and a large amount of ghost energy suddenly vented out, helping Chu Lan resist him. For a moment. Then, the invisible ghost energy was shot away with a palm. The flesh ball fruit was so terrifying. However, just this short moment was enough to reverse the situation of the battle. Ghost Tetsu, take out the sheath. It's terrifying. The demonic aura filled the air and instantly enveloped the surrounding space of 100 meters. The purple demonic knife became even weirder. Chu Lan held the knife in one hand and softly uttered 4 words in his mouth. One sword, Shura. Big discount for Dragon Boat Festival reading. Recharge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Grab a deposit now. Activity time, June 22nd to June 24th. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I just want to be a quiet Tianlong person. Author, Dai Tianlong. Chapter 23. The extremely sharp sword flashed past. In the shocked eyes of the big bear, the impact caused by his devil fruit ability was cut through with one knife. Red blood splashed on Xiao Alaboni's face. One of Big Bear's arms dropped, and blood couldn't stop falling from his palm. In the palm of his hand, there was a wound deep enough to the bone. The big bear with the power of the meatball fruit can knock anything away with his palms, whether it is a sharp blade, a cannonball with a huge impact, or even an incorporeal ghost. This attribute fundamentally determines that his palms cannot receive any physical damage. However, even with such a terrifying ability, Chu Lan still slashed him with one knife. Even his palm was almost severed in two. This is the 12 skills of the Supreme Great Sword. This is the first generation of Ghost. This is the power of Shura's sword skill that only belongs to Chu Lan. Well, although Kaititsu is still a sword in name, I believe no handsome guy would care about such a trivial matter. Terrible sword skills. Big Bear reluctantly praised, trying to activate the fruit power to stop the bleeding but failed. The fruit power in his right hand has been completely lost. Kizaru returned to Rayleigh's side. The figure holding the teacup seemed to have never moved, but the position of the teacup was slightly lower. Dakshin stared at Chu Lan. Since Chu Lan could cut one of his hands, he could also cut his other hand. If his ability disappeared, it would be impossible to do it again. Save Straw Hat Luffy. Lord Chulan's hung, I agree to your terms. Dakshan's name for Chulan became sincere. Yes, you are a very smart person. Chulan sheathed her sword and asked with a smile, now, can you tell me about the relationship between you two? Benefactor, he is just my benefactor. Chiao Alaboni finally realized what happened just now. She looked at Big Bear's palm and shouted with distress on her face. Benefactor. Yes, benefactor, she explained, back in Sobel Kingdom, he saved one of my lives and gave me food when I was about to starve to death. He gives you food, Chulan frowned, didn't you give it to him? Chiao Alaboni hesitated, later, in order to repay the favor, I gave him a lollipop. Is the lollipop sweet? Quite sweet. Then what? Then? She shook her head and said, no, I haven't seen him since then. Are you kidding me? He gave you a meal and saved your life. You are grateful to him. You gave him a lollipop, which sweetened the tyrant's heart and made him join the revolutionary army. Chulan seemed to be looking at a mentally retarded person. Chiao Alabon looked at him without retreating at all. The big bear was like a dull gourd, standing there without farting. The two looked at each other for a long time. Under Chu Ian's calm eyes, Chiao Alabo and I felt as if she was standing naked in front of him, and all the secrets were seen through by the man in front of her. She felt fear, but even so, she still did not take a step back. Even if she resisted his will, she would probably die here. However, being able to die with the big bear seems to be a good outcome. Ha, interesting woman. Chulan chuckled and looked away. Although he didn't get a clear answer, Chulan could already rule out the relationship between the two as benefactors. Big Bear saved your life, will you redeem his humanity? That's bloody stupid plot. Only if I believe it can there be a ghost. However, looking at their current attitudes, even if they are killed, nothing can be asked. However, his main purpose is not to explore the relationship between them, it's just a diversion from the main business. Its main purpose is still. Chulan took out the camera from her arms and commanded Annie, let's get down to business. Chiao Alaboni couldn't keep up with Chu Ian's thoughts, business? What business? Strike a pose and take photos. Chulan said speechlessly, why do you think I asked you to come here? Ah. Chiao Alaboni was confused. Didn't you call me here to explore my identity and the secret between me and the big bear? 1 second ago, you were fighting to the death with the big bear, threatening and intimidating me, a cute little loli, in an attempt to unearth the deepest secret in my heart, and the next second, you asked me to pose for a photo? Are you a devil? By the way, what is pose? Hurry, stop inking. Chulanti slipped her lowly figure and placed her next to the big bear. Come on, stand still and don't move. I'll take a basic photo first. Click. The shutter sound sounded. Chulan glanced at the finished film and nodded with satisfaction. Sure enough, the little Lolita and the big bear are a perfect match. I just want to be a quiet Tianlong person. Author, Dai Tianlong. Chapter 24. Hurry, it's time for the next pose. Chulan turned into a professional photographer and gave personal guidance. Chiao Alaboni moved reluctantly, lay on the big bear's lap, and asked. Is that so? Raise your hand again, yes, the expression will be cuter. Chulan directed on the spot, yes, 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 that's it, keep this movement and don't move. Click. One photo after another was frozen in the camera. I don't know how long it took, but Chiao Alaboni was desperate. Finally, she heard Chulan say, this is the last photo. We will finish it after taking this photo. Finally about to be freed, Chiao Alaboni jumped up from the ground on the spot. As a pirate captain who does whatever she wants, she discovered for the first time that it is so uncomfortable to obey others. My crew members, It's so miserable. This experience is simply more painful than being chased by the Navy. I definitely don't want to do it a second time. Chiao Alaboni grabbed Big Bear's book and threw it away, scolding, I didn't hear the master's order. Hurry, it's the last one. Big Bear lowered his head and showed a kind smile. Chulan took dozens of photos in total, but for the last shot, he didn't want to simply record it with photos. He put away the camera, took out the videophone bug from his arms, and started shooting. So if you have a good opportunity, how can you not make a big move? Annie, you do this and then shout Tiburce. Chiao Alaboni arranged her movements skillfully and shouted Tiburce. Make your voice louder and sharper. Tiburce. Very good, this is the feeling. Chulan continued to direct. Big Bear, you hide first, and when she shouts the sentence, use space transfer to appear in front of her. Remember, your expression should be fierce. Big Bear turned around silently. Chiao Alaboni faced the camera, stretched out her hand and pointed forward, with a fierce expression on her face, and shouted loudly. Tiburce, bite them to death. Roar. Big Bear roared, and his huge body instantly appeared in front of her, with his hands raised in the air and a fierce look. Okay, take it. Chulan waved her hand, and some accidents could be solved in one go. The two of them acted in their true colors. Apart from De Xiong's voice being too gentle and a bit dramatic, there was no other problem. What Chulan didn't expect was that, this girl can also add her own lyrics, which is not perfect. Chulan subconsciously glanced in a certain direction, full of contempt. This acting skill, Kizaru, study hard. Kizaru. Chulan put away the phone bug with satisfaction and said to De Xiong, who was bending down to pick up the book. In 3 days, come to Shijian City to see me. Big Bear nodded and agreed. Good. Chulan waved her hand, turned around gracefully, and shouted to Kizaru, who was still drinking tea, Old Huang, stop drinking and take me back to Marajio. Kizaru put down the teacup, stood up slowly, and gave Jean Momomaru a look, retreat. Jean Momomaru understood what Kizaru meant, and gave him a look, don't worry, old man, I will definitely catch the Straw Hat Boy and arrest Jiao Eli. Bonnie, capture Rayleigh alive. Kizaru nodded with satisfaction, grabbed Chu Ian's shoulders, and the two turned into light and disappeared. Jean Momoan suddenly realized, what? Are you going to interrogate Bartholomew Big Bear? Don't worry, leave it all to me. Jean Momomaru swung his axe and pounced on Rayleigh. Rayleigh put away the teacup, turned around and ran away. It wasn't that he was afraid of Jean Momomaru, but that Kizaru had already withdrawn and he had no opponent. With the strength, he can cross his legs and say to everyone, it's not that I look down on you, everyone here is rubbish. Jean Momomaru jumped into the air, and immediately turned around and rushed towards the Straw Hat Boy, but with Big Bear's space transfer ability in comparison, Jean Momomaru's speed was still a bit slower. The Big Bear's slap successfully hit the Straw Hat Boy, and Luffy's figure disappeared instantly. At this point, the Straw Hat Pirates were completely wiped out. As for where Luffy flew to, only Dakshin knew. Jean Momomaru was furious and fought with Dakshin on the spot, while PX-1 pounced on Chiao Alaboni. Chiao Alaboni was about to cry, turned around and ran away, yelling curses as she ran. Master, Chulan, you dishonest celestial dragon, you and I are at odds with each other. Behind her, PX-1 chased and fired fiercely, and one person and one bear disappeared deep into the jungle. The Big Bear took a deep look at Chiao Alaboni's disappearing back, and said nothing. The whole person disappeared in an instant, and no longer followed Jean Tao. Maru struggled. Jean Momomaru looked around and looked at the deserted place with a confused look on his face. I just want to be a quiet Tianlong person. Author, Dai Tianlong. Chapter 25. The Summit of the Red Continent. Holy Land, Marie Joya. The figures of Kizaru and Chu Lan suddenly appeared. Before Chu Lan could stand still, his figure immediately disappeared again, leaving only an afterimage that slowly dissipated in the air. I personally demonstrated what it means. I don't want to stay with you for a second. How afraid are you of me? Chu Lan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She shook her head and walked towards the magnificent castle in the distance. The Holy Land of Marie Joya. The location of the headquarters of the world government and the city where the Tianlong people live. Chu Lan naturally lives here too, but it is different from ordinary people. The difference between the Tianlong people is that he does not live in the villa area, but moved directly into Pangu city. No one lives in such a big castle, what a waste. On the way to Pangu city, there is an automatic sidewalk that is constantly running. You can reach the Pangu city gate directly without walking. The power of the moving walkway was originally driven by a certain number of slaves, but the efficiency is too low and the speed is too slow. After coming to this world for a while, Chu Lan relied on his status as an awesome thief and directly asked people to kidnap Vegapunk from the laboratory. Then he summoned hundreds of craftsmen and combined them with the technology of the machine city to successfully compete. A series of measures in the ancient city have been scientifically transformed. Including but not limited to, the speed is gradually increasing at this moment, and it has reached 80 miles on the moving sidewalk. The strong wind blew Chu Ian's long hair, but it did not blow his restless heart. Not long after, the huge gate of Pangu city was clearly visible. Outside the city gate, a group of maids were divided into two teams. Led by Stella, they stood at the city gate to welcome their master home. Welcome home. Dozens of maids of different races, but all of whom looked very much in line with Chu Ian's aesthetics, bent down and saluted. Their smiles were sweet and astonishingly white, which was simply pleasing to the eye. Chu Lan took a deep breath and slowly relaxed her body that was tense due to overwork. Come down. Looking at this scene, I can't help but sigh. This is life. A beautiful girl made from the angel tribe stepped forward and respectfully took the demon sword Ghost Tetsu. Girls from the angel tribe are born with strong strength, and the aura on their bodies can have a certain resistance to the demonic energy that demon sword Ghost Tetsu invisibly exudes. Other races, or if a maid with insufficient strength comes into contact with Goiche rashly, something unfortunate may happen. The rabbit-eared girl from the fur tribe bent down to help Chu Lan put on comfortable slippers, while the two maids from the small human tribe came to put on Chu Ian's shoulders. Give him a massage. Sitting on the turtle slice, a turtle car produced by Golden City and driven by 8 rare muscle turtles, Stella started the engine and drove away with the roar of Turtle Turtle. World Government Headquarters. In the huge room, there was a conversation going on between the 5 old stars. I heard that a pirate group attacked the Tianlong people. Who were they? Monkey D. Luffy. Monkey D. Luffy? The old man who changed his knife was silent for a moment and said, the D clan is really troublesome, get rid of him. Kizaru has already dispatched, there should be no problem. Ha ha ha, no problem? The blonde middle-aged man smiled and said, Monkey D. Luffy was saved by Bartholomew Bear. Bartholomew Bear? The curly-haired old man sneered, how is the experiment of Vegapunk, a victim of the Revolutionary Army? It can be done immediately and we will have a perfect weapon of war. If not disturbed by Chu Lan's Hung, the bald old man added. Didn't Chu Lan's Hung go to the East China Sea? It seems to be called a protagonist's tour. Not sure. According to the news we just got, he has returned to Pangu City. Someone come, the most stylish old man with a long beard who had been silent all this time suddenly shouted. Immediately notify Sengoku and ask him to send people to move Vegapunk. Chu Lan's Hung must not be allowed to find Vegapunk at this time. Obey. The confused naval soldier had no idea what was going on, but Wu Laoxing's order was absolute, so he immediately went out to inform Marshal Warring States. Wait a moment, the bearded old man said again, inform CP0 and have Rob Lucci on standby. Yes. I hope Chu Lan's Hung can stay in Pangu City recently and not go out. The 5 old stars sighed deeply at the same time. Pangu City, top floor. In the huge open-air bath, Chu Lan immersed her entire body in the water, and the fatigue accumulated along the way was finally released. Although Stella was with her throughout the journey, the conditions on the warship were not as comfortable as the castle he had carefully designed, plus he had been busy for so long after getting off the ship. Lying on his back beside the bath, the pure and lovely human maid stepped forward and gently placed a warm towel on Chu Ian's forehead. The elven girl kneeling on the other side put the peeled fresh grapes into his mouth. Chu Lan ate the grapes, closed her eyes comfortably, took a long breath, and sighed. Avain, this is heaven. After taking a comfortable bath, and rewarding the mermaid girl who had been serving him under the water with a grape to clear her mouth, Chu Lan changed her clothes and walked out of the bathroom. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I just want to be a quiet Tianlong person. Author, Dai Tianlong. Chapter 26. In front of the bedroom, a female rear admiral was standing straight in front of the door, waiting. Seeing Chu Lan appear, the woman immediately knelt down on one knee and said respectfully, I have met Master Chu Lan's Hung. It's Maggie. Chu Lan nodded and said, if anything happens, come in and talk. Yes. On the way from the bathroom, Stella had already told Chu Lan that a guest was visiting. In Pangu City, unrelated people are generally not allowed to enter and exit at will. After Chu Lan moves in, no one can enter without permission unless Chu Lan gives her permission. Pangu City. Trespassing without permission will be punished with treason. Especially men are directly refused to enter. Without him, it affects the perception. The ugly one makes me sick to my stomach, the handsome one, there is no handsome one among the minions. Therefore, whether it is Wu Laoxing or the warring states marshal, when conveying information to Chu Lan now, he will arrange for female subordinates to inform Chu Lan. Maggie is a direct subordinate of the warring states period, with the position of Major General, and is specifically responsible for communicating with Chu Lan. In the room, Stella held a towel and gently helped Chu Lan wipe her semi-dry long hair. Chu Lan leaned on the sofa, took a sip of champagne, and asked Maggie, what's wrong? Does the warring states marshal have any instructions for me? The subordinates dare not. Ma Chi knelt down on one knee and reported Marshal of the warring states period heard that Master Chu Lan's Hung returned to Marijoya safely, so he specially asked his subordinates to come to express his concern. Thank you warring states for me. Chu Lan put down the wine glass and asked, so, what is going on? Maggie continued, Marshal of the warring states period heard that you had contact with His Majesty Shishibukai, Bartholomew Big Bear. Big Bear is related to an important plan promoted by the government, so. The Marshal wants to know if you have any other plans for Big Bear. Chu Lan waved her hands and said nonchalantly, don't worry, I have no interest in the government's plan. Before Maggie could breathe a sigh of relief, Chu Lan changed the topic and continued. I just mentioned Vegapunk, where is he now? The sound of my turtle is a bit wrong and the horsepower is a bit low. Please inform him and ask him to come and check it for me. No, I didn't. Don't talk nonsense. I didn't say anything about Dr. Vegapunk just now. Maggie broke out in a cold sweat. Before coming here, the warring states marshal had just received the latest order from the 5 old stars to urgently transfer Vega Dr. Punk. The government's transformation plan has reached its most critical stage. Nothing can go wrong. Especially Chu Lan cannot let Dr. Vegapunk be arrested to repair cars, roads, and air conditioners. The warring states marshal also specially asked her, never mention Vegapunk's name in front of Chu Lan. Maggie was so wrong that she almost cried. Marshal of the warring states period, I really didn't say a word. It was all made up by Chu Lan himself. Big, my lord, Maggie stammered, Dr. Vegapunk is involved in an important project and his current whereabouts are unknown. I don't know where he is. The whereabouts of Hammer are unknown. Isn't he just busy transforming Big Bear? Isn't my turtle slice important? Huh? Are you discriminating against turtles? Chu Lan rolled her eyes and said, tell Warring States to finish executing Ace. Finally, let Vegapunk come to the castle. The mechanical equipment here should be overhauled and refurbished. Also, the research and development of mobile phones must be accelerated. Why are you bragging to me that I have a technological level that exceeds hundreds of years? After so many years, I can't even make a broken chip. What's the point of playing with transforming people every day? If you have the ability, build a Gundam. Although I don't understand what mobile Gundam is, how can I spy on Master Chu Lanzhen's unfathomable ingenuity? Maggie nodded in agreement and said, Sir Chu Lan, there is one more thing. What's up? Marshal of the Warring States period invites you to the Marshal's office for tea. He says he has something very important to tell you. Did he say something? No, but it is definitely something very important, Ma Chi said. Marshal Warring States requires that we must discuss with you face to face. Okay, I get it. Chu Lan waved her hand and said, go back and tell Warring States that I will be there soon. Yes. Maggie bent down to salute, turned around, and left the bedroom. As Maggie left, the door to the castle suddenly closed. Darkness gradually spread from Chu Ian's bedroom. In just a few minutes, the entire castle was filled with darkness. Completely covered by darkness that is so dense that it cannot be dissolved. Headquarters of the World Government, Office of the Admiral. After listening to Maggie's report, Warring States stroked his beard and nodded with satisfaction. As expected, he, the Marshal, still has a lot of face, but with just a few words, Chu Lanzheng actually agreed to come over for an interview as soon as possible. You know, usually he doesn't bother to see anyone. He stuffed the top secret documents on the table into the sheep's mouth, happily made a cup of tea, and stood in front of the window, waiting for Chu Ian's arrival. This first class. Just one night. I just want to be a quiet Tianlong person. Author, Dai Tianlong. Chapter 27. Chu Lan. The Marshal of the Warring States period looked haggard, and the tea in his hand was changed from cup to cup, and cup after cup of cold water. The face reflected in the window was very haggard, and the whole person looked listless. The little goat beside him did not care about the quality of his master's sleep, and slept soundly. He was still chewing the delicious confidential documents in his mouth. He crushed the teacup in his hand and let the tea flow all over the floor. Warring States gritted his teeth and said, 3 minutes, I will wait for you for 3 more minutes. On the other side, the darkness shrouding Pangu City gradually dissipated. Stella slowly opened her eyes, and the endless darkness poured into her eyes and disappeared. As Chu Ian's personal maid, she is not only responsible for Chu Ian's in daily life, when Chu Lan is resting, she needs Chu Ian's most loyal bodyguard. Her devil fruit ability can release enough darkness to cover the entire castle. Unlike Blackbeard's ability, her shady secrets are only can defend. Whether it is artillery or any other type of attack, it can be perfectly blocked. Even if someone uses seafloor stone, she can attack with a weapon and resist for a period of time, giving her enough time to wake up the sleeping Chu Lan. There is no way, Chu Lan has always had the biggest shortcoming from her previous life to now. That is, once you fall asleep, it's not easy to wake up. Even if someone explodes in his ear, it won't wake him up. The disadvantage is that if someone wants to assassinate him, Chu Lan will not be able to detect the danger in advance. The advantage is that as long as no one hacks him to death in the middle of the night, his sleep quality is really good. Fortunately, No one dares to board the Red Earth continent yet and bombard Pangu City frantically in front of the 5 old stars and the Navy. Chu Lan stretched out a lot and said happily. Sleeping in your own bed until you wake up naturally is a wonderful feeling. Stella, morning. Lord Chu Lan, good morning. Stella responded with a smile. The maids waiting outside the door walked into the bedroom and helped Chu Lan wash up. After washing up, Chu Lan came to the dining room and ate breakfast while listening to Li Fa's report on recent events. As a battle maid, the head maid of the Pleiades, Li Fa's main task is to be responsible for the security of the entire castle. Any events or people that may pose a threat to Chu Lan will be investigated in advance and eliminated when necessary. Lord Chu Lan, regarding Marshal Warring State's invitation yesterday, do you need to attend the appointment today? According to reports, Marshal Warring States has been waiting for you in the office all night. Puff. Chu Lan spit out a mouthful of salt soda water, ahem, cough, cough, what is this? Wiping her mouth, Chu Lan was a little unbelievable, that old man from the Warring States period waited for me all night again. Wait a minute, why should I say it again? Yes, Master Chu Lan. Li Fa replied. Chu Lan wiped her mouth and asked, you are still standing at the leftmost window, holding a cup of tea in your hand and looking into the distance. Yes. Warring States, this old fool, wouldn't he change his position to a window where he could see Pangu City? Chu Lan was speechless and held her forehead, seeing Stella's shady story, you should know that I am sleeping. Possible, the Warring States period is really old and confused. Li Fa nodded. Li Fa, how can you say that about the Warring States Marshal? Chu Lan admonished, we must respect the elderly. Yes, Lord Chu Lan. The Marshal may be old and confused. Okay, I guess it's impossible for you to respect anyone else besides me. Each one of them is really spoiled by me. Chu Lan stood up and said, okay, send me there quickly, otherwise the innocent teacup will suffer again. Yes. Getting on the turtle slice, holding the 2 battle maids in his arms, he drove straight to the Warring States office. Within a few minutes, he saw the magnificent door of the World Government headquarters. He found the Marshal's office with familiarity, and Chu Lan didn't knock on the door. Directly opened the door and walked in. The soldiers at the door did not dare to stop it. The door was pushed open, and then Warring States heard a hearty laugh. Oops, isn't this Marshal of the Warring States period? It's been a long time since I last saw you, and you miss me so much. Chu Lan opened her arms, strode towards the Warring States period, and hugged, little goat. Chu Lan has always insisted that this goat is the true body of the Warring States Marshal. Let go of my sheep. Warring States rescued the little goat from Chu Ian's arms, looked at Chu Lan who was sitting on the sofa in front of him and had already drank tea, and asked. Chu Lan, what are your plans? Why, let Straw Hat go. Let Straw Hat go. Chu Lan was so aggrieved that she said an old saying, where do you start with this? I even gave him a kick. I just want to be a quiet Tianlong person. Author, Dai Tianlong. Chapter 28. Forget it, it's not important. Warring States sighed, waved his hands and said the other thing is about Saint Charlos. I heard from Dalmatia that you want to throw him into the city. Yes, Chu Lan nodded. Little brother, it's hard for me to handle you like this. Warring States had a dark look on his face. What's the reason this time? Did he offend you? Chu Lan poured a cup of tea by herself and said nonchalantly, a waste, keeping it is a waste of food, send it to Impel Down City to let him a few years of reform through labor will do no harm to him. He will not die with the guards watching. Of course I know I can't die, but, Warring States had a headache and said. How many people have you sent in this year? There is a lot of pressure in Impel Down City. Magellan doesn't want to be the warden anymore. Magellan doesn't want to do it anymore? Chu Ian's eyes lit up and she said happily, that's a good relationship. Is there a new candidate? Do I need to arrange for someone to come in? Let me tell you, I have a very good candidate. He is ruthless, powerful, and does not suffer from diarrhea for more than 10 hours a day. He works 996 hours a day and has no complaints at all. He is definitely the best choice for the prison director. Warring States quickly covered Chu Ian's mouth, regretting bringing up this topic. He clearly knew that the one thing Chu Lan wanted to do the most was to send people to Impel Down City. If he succeeded, he would want to throw Tianlong people into the undersea prison again in the future. There is no need to say hello to him at all. He still knows what kind of bears all the Tianlong people are. Now Chu Lan throws a dozen Tianlong people in every year. If he lets his men become the wardens, I am afraid that it will not take a few years to push forward the city. It would have to be overcrowded, and Marijoa would probably not be able to meet a few celestial dragons. Do you want to know what the celestial dragons look like? Come to the undersea prison and show you what the real celestial dragons look like. Sengoku would not dare to make such a decision. By then, it will be a trivial matter for him, the marshal, to be dismissed. If it causes turmoil in the Valley of Gods, it will affect the security of the entire world. The warden is a position directly appointed by the world government. I am not qualified to make this decision. Warring States took out a document from the deepest part of the drawer, photographed it in front of Chu Lan, and changed the subject. Let's take a look. I have some clues about what you asked me to find. Real. Chu Lan looked surprised, grabbed the documents on the table and started browsing. On the thin document, there was a double-edged sword with a strange shape and a curved blade. There was no other unnecessary introduction, just a line of words under the picture. The 12 skills of the Supreme Otaki Heaven. Ah, that's it? Chu Lan shook the document and said, just knowing the name and style, does that mean you have an idea? Where is this knife now? Warring States shook his head. We don't know yet. Chu Lan slapped the table and said angrily, how long has it been since so many people have not been able to find the second supreme great sword 12 skills? What does your world government do for food? What do the Navy do for food? Are all people in CP0 trash? Warring States also slapped the table and said, this is the 12 skills of the supreme great sword, not some scrap metal. These 12 knives have disappeared for many years. I have never seen a few of them when I was young. Where can I find them for you after such a long time? Can't find it. Can you borrow it? Chu Lan changed her face instantly, raised her eyebrows and said, don't you think my hawk's knife is very handsome? Hawkeye's black knife knight? Marshal. Sengoku's eyelids jumped and he asked, you mean, you want me to send the Navy to snatch the sword from the active Shishibukai, the world's greatest swordsman? Who asked you to rob it? Chu Lan said with a smile, can the matter between great swordsmen be called a robbery? Borrow, understand? Warring States period. Borrow. Lend me your sister. For a swordsman, the sword is equivalent to his second life. Same goes for knives. For Hawkeye, a single man, Black Knife Knight is equivalent to his wife. You want me to lend his wife to you? What a joke. Then he can't just betray the Shishibukai and chase me to the world headquarters to hack me to death? Okay, let's put away Hawkeye's knife first. Chu Lan looked disgusted and said. It's hard to take action with the active Shishibukai, so you can go grab it from the pirates. Isn't there going to be a war with Whitebeard in 2 days? The Naginata Kanguniri in his hand looks pretty good to me. Warring States was trembling with anger. Chu Lan continued, if the Navy wins, remember to leave the sword to me. If you lose the fight, forget it. The Navy will definitely win, Warring States said firmly. Yes, we will definitely win. Chu Lan said perfunctorily, left a few words, picked up the documents on the table, turned around and left. Inform Kuzan and wait for me in Impel Down City now. I want to go to LV6 to meet someone. Warring States period. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I just want to be a quiet Tianlong person. Author, Dai Tianlong. Chapter 29. After successfully finding the clue to the second supreme sword, Chu Lan couldn't be happier. Although I only know the basic appearance and name, it is much better than before. After coming here for so many years, I just found a supreme sword. Even if it is the first generation of Kaititsu, I will inevitably feel bored after using it for a long time. What's more, in this situation, his strength cannot be improved quickly and effectively at all. Not to mention practicing the two-sword style. I don't care to use ordinary knives, and it's hard to find a great knife. Although Whitebeard's Kongyun Kaiu is good, it is too big. If you use it to perform the two-sword style, well, that picture is beautiful when you think about it. Hawkeye's knife is slightly better, but it's actually not very suitable for him to use, not to mention that it's impossible to get it without killing him. However, if you want to successfully kill the world's greatest swordsman who has no worries at all, if the three major generals take action together, they may have a chance. Apart from this, the only supreme sword currently known to be most suitable for Chu Lan to use is red-haired Shank Saber Griffin. But this is the most impossible thing. 2 years ago, when the red-haired man secretly climbed up to the Red Earth continent for the first time to have a secret talk with the 5 old stars, he happened to be caught by Chu Lan, who was sitting on the edge of the Red Earth continent, drinking and admiring the moon. Facing 7 maids whose strength was comparable to that of a vice admiral, the red-haired girl decisively raised her hands and surrendered. Chu Lan didn't give him any trouble and let him go on the spot. After the discussion with Wu Laoxing was completed, the red-haired man left and came to have a glass of wine with him to say hello. It didn't matter what they said hello, the two of them drank all night for no apparent reason, and from then on, a deep friendship was formed. The red-haired man came twice later, and even one of them came to him specifically for a drink. So, you have to give the redhead some face. It's hard to snatch your friend's knife. It is precisely because of this that Chu Lan completely believes that the red-haired guy is definitely a devil fruit user. The fruit of face? Don't deceive me. Get on a warship specially customized for the Navy, and, escorted by the Pleiades star cluster, sail to Impel Down City through a special channel. Undersea prison. Impel the city. As the first prison used by the Navy to hold serious criminals, Impel Down City is located in the windless zone in the first half of the Grand Line. It is the area with the tightest security besides the Holy Land Marijoya. The main tower-like building is submerged in the sea, and the whole building is made of sea stone. It is surrounded by countless huge sea kings. It is basically impossible for criminals to escape from prison. There are 6 floors in Impel Down City, LV1 LV6. The further down you go, the more dangerous the prisoners are. The prisoners in LV1 LV4 are basically part-timers. To say how vicious they are is not obvious at all. Starting from LV5, the prisoners' strength began to be noticed. The deepest level of the prison, LV6 Infinite Hell, houses the most vicious criminals in the world. The prisoners here are more serious. Very powerful, but unfortunately appeared too early. Crocodile was forcibly knocked over by the protagonist's halo, the most ferocious female prisoner in history, Katerina Dupont, Bacchus Choate of Big Wine, Bundy Valda, Eugilio and others were all imprisoned here. Of course, Fire Fist Ace and Jinbei were also imprisoned here at this time, and the 2 good friends still lived in the same cell. The Minotaur, the jailer beast, came to give Jinbei a hammer every now and then, and Ace comforted him. The 2 of them were living a pretty good life. But, Chu Lan came here not to rescue Fire Fist Ace, but to pick up a few Tianlong people he threw in the Red Lotus Hell. At the same time, if possible, go to LV6 to find a bodyguard for himself. a man whom even Blackbeard did not dare to recruit when he escaped from prison. Douglas Barrett. Malinvando. In order to prepare for the execution of Fire Fist A 7 days later, Malinvando has entered a state of full alert. Under the command of General Sakaski, all lieutenant generals, major generals, and other soldiers are training intensively. However, despite such busy mobilization, one of the three generals, King Zikuzan, was still sleeping in his office openly. Bru bru, bru bru. The phone on the table suddenly rang. The soldier who was helping his general handle the work immediately picked up the phone. After hearing the caller's voice, he quickly stood at attention and saluted. Yes, Marshal of the Warring States period. General Kuzan is still here, still resting. Yes, my subordinates will tell him to get out immediately, scream. Kuzan, who was woken up, gently opened his eye mask, yawned, and took the phone reluctantly. Mao 11 Marshal of the Warring States period, it's me, Qingji, what's the matter with calling me at this time? What? A trip to impel down. What to do? As a bodyguard. To whom? Master Chu Lan's hung. King Z felt sleepy on the spot, dropped the phone and ran out. Tell Chu Lan that I will be there soon. I just want to be a quiet Tianlong person. Author, Dai Tianlong. Chapter 30. When I ride my little motorcycle, I will never be stuck in traffic. Qingji got on a cool-looking motorcycle. The seawater in front of him condensed instantly, and an ice road just suitable for vehicles to pass appeared on the sea surface. Tell Sakaski and I'll go to Impel Fortress. After the words fell, Glacier 1 burst out with an ear-splitting roar, and suddenly accelerated away. Leaving behind his confused subordinates, they hurriedly ran to inform General Sakaski. Glacier 1 was the little one given to him by Qing Pheasant. The name given to the motorcycle, the specially modified engine can perfectly adapt to his devil fruit ability, thereby providing sufficient power. As long as Aokiji does not die, this car can keep running. A veritable perpetual motion machine. The tires also have an additional anti-skid design. When Aokiji is driving on the ice, he doesn't have to worry about accidentally falling into the sea and drowning after falling asleep. As for the speed, you can see that he goes from Marineland to Impel Down without even bothering to ride on a warship. This kind of motorcycle Chu Lan ordered Vegapunk to build 2 bicycles in total. One was in the hands of Chu Lan himself, and the other was given to Qingji. The original precious bicycle had long been thrown into an unknown corner by him. On the execution platform, Sakaski saw him get on the car, saw him make waves, and saw him disappear on the coastline. With a dark face, he asked loudly, what is that guy King Z doing at such an important time? King Z's adjutant rushed over, wondering. Reporting to General Sakaski, it is said that General Kuzan set off to push forward the city to serve as a bodyguard for Lord Chu Lan's hung upon the order of the Warring States Marshal. As a bodyguard? At such an important moment, why did Chu Lan's hung go to push city? Sakaski's expression changed and he cursed damnable celestial dragon. The adjutant lowered his head and said nothing. He was frightened and did not dare to hear these words. 3 hours later, a warship slowly docked in front of the gate of Impel City, and a group of battle maids filed out, driving away all the guards at the gate and clearing a large open space. The soldiers who pushed forward the gate of the city tried to resist, but within a few seconds, they were lying on the ground one by one, staring blankly at the dozen or so powerful and beautiful women with crazy expressions. The battle maids have already turned a blind eye to these gazes. They are all staring at the cabin, waiting for their master to appear. Hey, these maids are so beautiful, what are they from? I don't know, maybe she's a maid of some nobleman. The aura of these maids is too powerful, they feel no worse than those of lieutenant generals. With such a grand scene, who is the big shot on the warship? Maybe it's a noble of some country, or maybe it's the king. Hey, "Look, someone is coming out." A group of Navy soldiers whispered, and the reason why they did not issue an alarm even after being beaten was because they had received orders before that a big shot was coming to visit. After seeing this scene, they naturally realized that the person coming was the big shot mentioned by the deputy warden. However, they don't know who the actual person is. After all, Chu Ian's identity is kept secret to a certain extent, and his whereabouts can be said to be the top secret of world conquest and must not be investigated by anyone who is interested. During this visit to Impel Down, Sengoku only told General Aokiji and Magellan, the warden of Impel Down. Of course, Magellan didn't know the news because he was struggling in the bathroom as he had diarrhea for 10 hours a day. "Real man, you still need to squat for 2 more hours today." The person who answered the phone was Hannibal, the deputy warden of Impel Down City. Under the gaze of everyone, Chu Lan slowly walked out of the cabin, and all the Navy soldiers looked at him. Behind them, expect the big shot to appear. Until Chu Lan walked off the deck, the soldiers were still looking forward to it. Where is the big shot? Why hasn't he come out yet? Who is this little brother, the attendant of a big shot? He still has a knife in his hand, so it must be it. The soldiers were looking forward to it even more. Even one of the attendants was so handsome. What a powerful big shot there was in the warship. All the soldiers were transformed, and they were waiting for the big shot to appear with even more anticipation. They waited until the warship left and parked in the dock not far away. No one appeared from the cabin again. Just when the soldiers were wondering why the big man hadn't appeared yet, a figure with a prajna face, an Egyptian pharaoh-style headdress, and a bulging belly like an evil ghost rushed out from behind the gate of the city. He came out, shouted in surprise, and rushed towards Chu Lan. "Lord Chu Lan's hung. You are finally here." The soldiers were all stunned, their jaws dropped to the floor. Can the deputy warden personally greet the legendary big shot, this young man?